like to call this meeting to order. February 27th is the Township Committee combined agenda regular meeting. Join me in the flag salute, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting.
Is it not under your, is it not under your?
That's it. Adequate notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, 1 Collier Lane, Basking Ridge, on the Township website, and emailed to the Burnsville News Whippany, the Courier News Bridgewater, tapinto.net, and filed with the Township Clerk on December 14th, 2017. Any motion to go into closed session will be deemed to include a motion that the matters discussed at such closed session will be disclosed to the public when such matters are finally determined, and there is no further reason to prohibit the public disclosure of information relating to such matters. Meeting rules adopted by the Township Committee. There will be no new business introduced after 10:30 p.m. Public comment will be accepted at all meetings. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes each, and all meetings will adjourn no later than 11:30 p.m. Roll call, please, Denise.
Mr. Baldessari.
Here.
Ms. Bianchi.
Here.
Ms. Gaziano.
Here.
Mr. Millay.
Here.
And Mayor Carpenter is not here tonight.
All right, we're going to go right to public comment. Let me read the rules. Comments are welcome during the public comment period during this meeting on any agenda item or other matter over which the Township Committee has jurisdiction. However, if an ordinance is scheduled for its own public hearing on the agenda, please hold your comments for that particular public hearing. To address this body, the speaker must come forward to the microphone, state his or her name and address for the record. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. The clerk will keep time. Please promptly yield the floor when time is called and return to your seat. Your cooperation in adherence to these rules of order will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting. Public comment is open.
My name is Paul Kopp, 109 Village Drive, Basking Ridge. I've been a resident for 26 years. I'm talking about school safety. We face an important security problem in our schools. New Jersey State Legislature passed the grade C level for police officers so retired police can carry a weapon and act in security positions in our school. New Jersey has the most restrictive assault weapon ban in the country. A person caught with one will get 10 years in prison and a $150,000 fine. Gun problems in New Jersey still exist. I know there's a police officer at Ridge and the middle school. The Township Council should pay for a police officer with a retired police officer as a backup at each of the 4 elementary schools, as well as the high school and the middle school. We must protect the school children and teachers. Teachers should not carry weapons. The funds to cover the police should not come from the highly restricted school budget. It must be paid by the town because it's a township security problem. Every town is looking at this problem and will become quite competitive for these retired police officers. You must act quickly. We must do this now for the protection of the vulnerable students and teachers in Burnett Township schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Yes, sir. My name is Ken Warman. I live at 125 Countryside Drive. I've lived in Basking Ridge for 38 years, and I too want to talk to you about a serious problem. It appears that sometime within the coming year, our government will legalize marijuana. I think that's a very sad and distressing mistake, and I've read articles recently in the paper which lead me to believe that a number of you may believe that as well. The heading for the last article I read was, "The local governments will take a wait-and-see attitude." I was reared in the United States Marine Corps. I don't like wait-and-see attitudes. I think we better take an aggressive one early on, and I would approve and would certainly champion. I'm filling out a sheet right now for tags to talent or something like that, what you call it. Willing to work, willing to speak, willing to fight, I would say, to not allow marijuana to be raised and sold in our community. It's a grave danger to our children and our children's children. And I read an article recently by a man named John Correccia from Ford's who highlights some of these dangers. Marijuana is dangerous to the human thought process. Marijuana, when smoked in quantity, destroys a portion of the frontal lobe of the brain. If millennials start using marijuana recreationally in New Jersey, the death rate from suicide and automobile accidents will skyrocket. With the use of marijuana, the cost of lives will far outweigh any supposed benefits. There are portions of your brain that are required for critical thought. Marijuana destroys those portions of your brain. Marijuana is a dangerous drug and will take many innocent lives. Let's see what we can do together to prevent that from happening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment?
Never pick a good night to come to this governing body. I always pick a packed house. Rob Walton, Jersey Central Power and Light, 52 Chatham Road, City of Summit. Three quick things. We'll be doing tree trimming in the township starting in April, continuing through May out of the King George substation circuit. You should have received by now an email with the street names for that. We'll be sending out another notification about 2 weeks before starting of that. We'll also be tree trimming out of the Chambersburg substation starting in December. That's a very small portion of the township, and you'll get that notification sometime in late November. Third and finally, we have put into the township a loop recloser scheme out of the folks who are served by the Ridge substation, one of the circuits. That'll improve reliability for about 900 customers. A recloser is a very fancy circuit breaker. So a circuit breaker, obviously you have a tree limb falls on the wire, an animal contact, the breaker opens, power's interrupted, people call in the outage, we come out and restore the power. A recloser will automatically close that breaker in the hope that whatever caused the outage has fallen away. So in the case of a tree limb, the tree limb fell to the ground, there's no longer a fault, the recloser will close that circuit breaker automatically and restore power within 30 seconds. By putting several of these reclosers in series between different circuits, we're able to isolate an outage and restore folks a lot faster without having to have crews come out and do the work. So we expect that this will save customers about an hour's worth of outage a year. Our customers on average are without power for about an hour and a half to 2 hours in an average year. So that's better than 50% for most of your folks. And we've put those in place at that circuit sometime last year. So folks have already seen the improvement, and hopefully it will continue to bear fruit. And we're starting to add more of those recloser schemes throughout our service territory, but Berners Township is one of the first. So I'm going to pass that along. And as always, happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Rob Walton?
No, but thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks a lot.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you, Rob.
Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Nelson.
How you doing? Gerard Elson, 26 Wedgewood Drive, Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Been a resident here for close to 25 years. I see on the correspondence section of the agenda that there's a letter from Mr. Heffernan of the Ridge Baseball Club requesting the extended use of lights at the Little League field starting April 1st, 3 weeks earlier than the lease allows. It seems this request comes in every 6 months to a year. I went back to 2011 and the same request was made. Mr. Merlet was mayor at the time and denied the request at that time. I polled about 8 of my neighbors, and they all expressed the same concerns. Okay, lights will be on during weeknights, school nights, and weekends, lighting up the neighborhood. There's no buffer provided by the trees this time of year. The leaves are not out yet. Okay, we're going to have added noises from batting cages, from pregame practices now and more on school and work nights and on weekends. Imagine hearing your neighbor banging on a metal pipe all day. Okay, you come home from work, and this is the sound of the metal bats make in these cages. There's been nothing done for noise abatement, despite my request, directly to the Little League and to the committee in the past. Okay, so something has to be done no matter what on that. But imagine morning, noon, and night on weekends, someone banging on your neighbor's banging on your pipe, right? And that's the kind of a nuisance this is. The cages are in use as early as 7 a.m. on weekends. So we'll have more traffic, more parking chaos. And what's the purpose here? Is it to benefit the kids or to hold more tournaments? Okay, a lot of this stuff, this league is about tournaments here. There's recreational leagues, but I don't think this is what this is about. All right, there's about 75, maybe 90 kids who participate in the spring league based on what I can see on the website here. And tournaments make money. Back of the envelope, 40 teams participating in a tournament, $40,000. They charge almost $1,000 per team entering it. They hold 5-6 tournaments a year, $220,000 a season. Okay, where's that money going and who is it benefiting, right? So anyway, I think, it's not benefiting the neighborhood, right? Because we're just adding more chaos, more noise, more light pollution as we extend the season even longer at night. Okay, so I believe this would require the lease to be opened up to change the date here. So should this progress further, the township needs to consider the neighborhood impact, demand that noise abatement be done for the batting cages, no matter what, and maybe and limit the use of lights. Maybe just use the back 2 fields, right? And use Mountain Park for the other stuff. Maybe we ought to take a look at how much money is being made by these tournaments. We charge $1. The lease charges the Little League $1 per year. They're making over 200-something thousand, maybe $300,000 a year back of the envelope every year by tournaments. So take some of that money, maybe build some batting cages at Mountain Park, spread this around a little bit, and relieve the pressure on the neighborhood from this field. So my view, I'd like to hold by the lease. I don't want to open this up. I don't want to extend the lights and usage because it just brings other things. My neighbors feel the same way, and that's what I want to get on the record before as I see this is being requested again. Okay, so thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Kopp, you've already been up. Okay. Sir, please come forward.
My name is Paul Demergian. I reside at 181 Douglas Road in Bernards Township, and this is an address that's become synonymous with 180 Douglas Road in Far Hills. As you know, the Borough of Far Hills is proposing a 90-unit development at 180 Douglas Road, the 10-acre property across the street from my house. Last week, the Bernardsville News had an article that said the Bernards Township Committee or officials sent a letter to Far Hills requesting a meeting. And I'd like to know what the status of that meeting is. Has there been a meeting scheduled? How has Far Hills accepted that invitation? Mr. Sordillo, I recognize you from the Far Hills Borough meeting. So I don't know if you can provide any insight or if it's a conflict of interest or how that works, but I'm trying to get some information. I know there's a few of my neighbors here that want to get some information and find out, what's going on with the correspondence between the two, between the Bernards Township and the Borough of Far Hills. And so, can anyone speak to that?
Any responses to public comment will be made after we've heard from everybody in public comment.
Okay. So I want to just say thank you, the attorney. I think, was it Jonathan Drill? Is he the normal attorney that sits on the board?
Mr. Bellardo has a conflict, so it is Mr. Drill who's handling the matter for Bernards Township.
Okay. It gets confusing, and I apologize. It's like musical chairs. But so I wanted to thank him and you for having our back. The neighborhood, we're all concerned in Bernards Township. Several of us went to the meeting in Far Hills in January, and they made it perfectly clear that they weren't concerned about what the Bernards Township residents had to say about the project. But we are concerned, and again, we thank you for sending the letter to Far Hills. Today I became aware that Far Hills will be holding hearings in April, and I'd like to know if Bernards Township is planning on sending any representatives to the meeting. Their meeting, the Far Hills meeting, the hearing, will be with the developer K&K to discuss the project in detail. And I'd like to know if any thought has been given to, for Bernards Township to send a representative, whether it be from the committee or a traffic expert or the planning professional. So these are things I'd like you to address if you can. And one other thing. The Bernardsville News reported that the letter that was sent to Far Hills was a formal protest. It's my understanding that it was just sort of an invitation to have correspondence. So if you could clarify whether or not it was a formal objection, I would appreciate that. Okay? So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Nick Marlowe. I reside at 346 Mount Prospect Road. I don't have any
Spell your
formal...
last name, please.
Marlowe, M-A-R-L-O-W.
Thank you.
I do not have any formal prepared comments this evening, but I would just like to echo the previous speaker's concerns about the development, which is proposed for the border of Far Hills and Bernards Township. It's an appalling idea. If you guys know this area, you know how quiet and idyllic that is. It's a dreadful, dreadful idea to dump 91 houses on this corner, which in of itself is dangerous, if anything else. So I would just echo the comments of the previous speaker and also the views and thoughts of all of the residents of that side of town. A lot of people couldn't be here tonight because we didn't have, or they didn't have sufficient notice. Not because of you guys, I think we're just figuring out how to get notice. But a lot of people are very, very concerned on this side of town. So we'd really like to know what's going on and exactly what action will be taken by the township. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, please go ahead.
Good evening. I'm John Schulenberg. I live at 14 Wedgwood Drive in Bernards Township. Have for nearly 30 years now. And I just wanted to reiterate what Mr. Ellison had to say. And what comes to mind is the fact that this continually, the lights in the Little League fields continually reopen and reopen and reopen again. And more is asked and more is asked. And what's brought up is that it's for the good of the kids, and why wouldn't we want to do this? Well, the reason we don't want to even open the lease is because everything is continually asked over and over again for more and more things, and it always expands. It always gets bigger. There's always more construction. There's always more traffic. There's always more lights. There's always longer lights. And so I think it's important to consider the fact that the lease is there for a reason. We had discussions about this when it was redone. We acceded to a lot of their demands at that point in time. We talked about having regular meetings, regular information about it. The fact that they sent the letter is the first time we heard about even asking about the lights being extended. So I just think it's a mistake to continue to allow that. What Jerry mentioned about the money and the tournament fact is also a concern. The fact that the township rents that space, that ground to them for such a small amount, and have for I don't know how many years since before I lived here, is a remarkable situation that it also allows to earn that type of money and generate that kind of income. So that's one concern. And the thought just came to me to bring up one other point, is that we have in the past used the pedestrian bridges. It's a whole off-topic, different thing, but I'm curious as to whether I know some of my neighbors have been passing around a petition, some information about working on the pedestrian bridges. I know the one in the Liberty Corner is especially one that we've used a lot and can't and haven't. Two of my daughters are runners, and so I'm just curious as to where that stands in the reconstruction, the rebuilding of those devices. But I would urge you not to reopen the lease with the Little League. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment this evening?
Hi, my name is Ramana Kaleem. I live on 197 Douglas Road. And I'm also here to express my opposition to the Douglas Road project. I've emailed all of the members of the committee. I won't repeat what my neighbors have stated, but I'm also curious to find out how our township planner, Mr. Banish, can represent our interests, given that he represents Far Hills as well. And I understand that he's an independent contractor, but and generally speaking, you can, as a planner, represent one town and at the same time represent other towns. But in this situation where we appear to be at odds with Far Hills, I don't know how that can continue to work. So again, just want to express my deep opposition to 180 Douglas development and get an answer to that question as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else this evening for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Janet Ashnault, 309 Douglas Road. Also here with my neighbors, very much concerned about the Far Hills development. I'm thankful that Bernard, from the last meeting I attended, that Bernard's Township seems to be handling their affordable housing a little bit better than Far Hills did for them to get this intervener, jumping in on them and forcing this 91 unit. And I'm sure you've heard it all, why people don't want more density, the traffic, sewer, whatever. But Douglas Road is unique in that it is a series of straightaways and curves. And let me tell you, these sports cars love to go through the curve. They come straight down towards me. I hear them downshift. I hear them lay a little rubber on my turn. And then once they get past my turn, they floor it to the stop sign. So we got a really, really narrow curve there. And when I get a taste of increased traffic, whenever they put a detour down Douglas, and I've talked to the traffic lieutenant a few times when this has happened, but the worst was when the bridge was out on 202, and I had tractor trailers passing on this narrow bend. So it's not the road for added traffic, especially on the curves. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to Mr. Baldessari about his behavior. Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please, sir.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. My name is Brian Reynolds, 49 East Craig Street. I'm also a member of the Ridge Baseball Club Board of Directors. And I just want to make clear for the public, I trust the committee has read the letter that we submitted, that our ask is very limited. This is not about finances. This is not about tournaments. This is not about bringing new teams in. This is asking for 23 days to allow our lights to be on for a couple hours a day for 23 days. And a big concern of our league is that we can't get managers to volunteer to manage teams. Why? Because without lights, our games have to start at 5 o'clock. Kids have to be there early to warm up. So you're talking about a 4:15, between 4 and 4:30 arrival. People at work can't commit, no matter how close they work to Basking Ridge, to manage a team because they can't get there at 4 o'clock. And we're in jeopardy of having to eliminate a league because we can't find people who can commit because they have to get there. But I want to make clear for the public, it's a limited ask. We're asking for lights on for a couple hours a night for 23 days. It's not about weekend tournaments. It's not about out-of-town teams. It's not about parking. It's not about finances. We're a nonprofit. Our 990 is on file. It's a public document. Anyone wants to know about our finances, you can go look at them. We're asking for 23 days for some lights so we can have more managers able to coach our kids.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Todd?
Good evening, everybody. Todd Edelstein, Riverside Drive. I love when we have democracy and we have people come and comment, because that's the only time people get FaceTime with their elected people. They question them and ask questions. Problem I have, as normal, this is not the first time, second time, or even the fifth time I've said this, but I think public comments should not be the first thing that comes up. Not when you have correspondence and then you have reports that people would like to comment on. Just like last meeting, you had somebody do reports on the public works projects, and another person do reports on the taxes. Now, then everybody could sit for the rest of the evening upset or not very happy because they didn't get a chance to question this report. So now 2 weeks later, I have to come here and say something. And now it really is kind of crazy because now, oh, well, I should have said it before. But you don't know what's going to come out of their mouth. So if you're not going to do this and have the public comments after these correspondence and after reports, then I think there should be a second comment at the end of the night like we used to have years ago. And I know, I've been told, that on Fridays, the mayor, the business administrator, and the town clerk go over the meeting schedule, and they set it. So it shouldn't be a problem to know how to set this. And I don't know why it's hidden. It shouldn't be like this. People shouldn't have to sit here and be aggravated after somebody says something and not even be able to question them. I'd like to question Ms. Johnson about this open space tax that was you had, and it was supposed to sundown, but obviously it didn't sundown because it actually went right into public works. So we actually got a tax increase. We didn't get a tax decrease. So $40 out of $100,000. So I'm paying $240 more a year now for public works because it's hidden. It's kind of a big, shell game. So we don't want to say we had a tax increase. We just kind of moved the numbers around a little bit. Because if it's sundown, then we should have less, not more, or the same. But she's not here to question that. That's all well and good. The other thing is, so many things to say. Public Works. Obviously the Public Works budget had to go up because they actually almost doubled their budget for the weekends at the town dump or recycling center. Because where it used to be 3 people on one day and 2 people on a Sunday, now you have 8 people all weekend. And the other problem is several of the guys who are there, they hang out by the boxes, going through the boxes to see what goodies they could get when you got brush around all the other boxes, where I think that's why they had to have another person there to watch that box to make sure people don't dump stuff into the brush box. What happens to a broom and shovels? That's not in the budget. They can't sweep up when they're not doing something. I was raised differently. I know my mom said, and we worked out in Newark at an Army Navy store on Clinton Avenue, and she said she could always find something for me to do if I didn't have something to do. And I'm going to tell you, if they don't have something to do at Public Works at that town dump, I'll go up there, and I could find things for them to do. There's going to be going with the marijuana thing, and I'm with the gentleman there, but I think it's a planning board, and I think it's got to be on the master plan, and we have to say we don't want it manufactured and we don't want it sold in town. When they make it legal and people will be able to smoke it up in their houses, there's probably very little we could do about it. But I'm sure on a master plan or on the planning board, we can zone it so it can't be done in this town, just like several other towns have been doing down at the shore. And I have family members, and I know I've seen them smoke, and they get paranoid and all other stupid stuff. I've also seen people out on the streets in the ghettos like that. So there's no joy in seeing somebody smoke up. They just get stupid. Speaking of which, I think not this weekend, but coming weekend, they're supposed to be doing the medication drop-off at the police department. And again, I've asked, why can't we have a box here downstairs in that basement when you come in so people could drop their medication off? Because that door is only open for a limited amount of time on any night, or any day, I should say, at the police department for people to drop stuff off.
Todd, can you
I'll wrap it up in a second. Because for 3 hours on one Saturday when you decide to do it is crazy. Why even bother then? It could be down there, there's a camera down there, you could have an officer come in, take it out, put it in evidence, and inventory it. Once a day, wherever. It's not that much. And people don't want to drop off their heroin or marijuana or anything they like or they find in the house from their family members. They don't particularly, they feel a little uncomfortable bringing into the police department. Okay, it's just the way it is. That's how people are. And I think if it was off-site, we would do it there. Not a problem. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Jessica Lothrop, 149 Douglas Road. My husband and I are here tonight to express our deep concern about the development at 180 Douglas Road, the proposed development. And we thank you for getting involved at this point, and we hope that you continue to support us as we fight what we clearly see to be a terrible idea. That's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Going once? Going twice? Got closed public comment. Thank you all very much. All right, we are going to discuss correspondence. I'm going to address some of the issues that were raised in public comment during Township Committee and staff comments, which will be after the correspondence, so we'll handle it that way. Our first item of correspondence, Denise?
Yes, we have a letter dated February 13th, 18. That's from Ridge Baseball Club. That's requesting an extended use of lights at Valley Road Complex.
All right. I will just remind my colleagues up here that in order to make this change, if we decide to do so, it's going to require changing the ordinance, which means that we are going to have to introduce on the very next meeting, the 13th, and vote on it the 2 weeks after that. So this is not something we can let percolate for a while. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for a sense of the body here as to whether or not they want to pursue this matter and revise the ordinance or not. And I'm going to start with Ms. Bianchi.
I understand both sides that it's my understanding, I have questions. So before we can do anything, we would need to have a conversation about it. One of my questions would be, has the Ridge, I don't think we can do that now, right, John? I just
really
understand
can't.
what they are, and at some time they have to be answered for me. You know, how long has the baseball club been operating since April 1st for a number of years? Are you having the games? What are the hours of the games beginning April 1st? Or is this something new? Do you usually start later? So don't answer them now because I have a number of them. But
And
that's
frankly, I don't want to get this into a Q&A.
No, I don't either. I'm just letting you know that before I could do any of that, I need more information to consider it.
We have to get a sense of the body this evening. You're going to have to voice an opinion one way or the other, I'm afraid. Because if we get majority of people want to go ahead, we have to draft the ordinance and proceed. If not, then we don't.
So you're saying we have to draft the ordinance before we have any more information about it?
No, well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying we have to take action tonight one way or the other.
I'm not interested in drafting an ordinance until I have answers to questions.
That amounts to a no. So.
Okay, then it has to be a no. But I would prefer to pursue
I understand what you're saying.
To have a Q&A and have all the information out and understand what the impacts are on the wedge.
Okay, but it's the end of February and we need this done next month. That's the problem.
Then I'm going to have to be a no because I don't have any information.
Okay, Mr. Baldessari.
Yes, same thing. Too many questions. I understand both sides exactly where you're coming from. I also know that the baseball seasons have already been, extended. That's a far cry from when I was, little and played Little League. So, but understanding where the residents are coming from, what they have to, endure on a regular basis. I'd like to hear some more, some questions that I've got too. 23 days. I mean, is it going to make or break anything in terms of, you said you're going to lose a league. I've got too many questions, but if I've
I thought I was going to be able to make a presentation, but I guess not.
No, we're just dealing with correspondence here this evening.
I'm not for breaking the lease as of right now until I had some more information, maybe some more questions.
Okay.
I agree. The letter that we got or the correspondence that we got doesn't provide enough justification to make any change at this time.
Yeah, I think this process will start earlier in the year. I think we said the same thing last year when they came before us.
It never came back.
It's not how, we got a letter from you asking, you didn't ask for a presentation, you sent us a letter asking for us to make the change, period.
You're talking about this letter?
That's correct.
Yes, and it was in follow-up to the original letter, which was last year.
Last year's business was last year's business. We have new members on the committee and all that. I'm afraid.
So why wouldn't you have taken action last year then?
Because you came too late for us to.
Last year?
That's what I was told by the clerk.
That's what the minutes reflect. You came in March last year, and the committee said it was too late in the year to take action.
The committee said. I don't understand why it was too late then. What made it late?
Because we require 2 meetings to make any changes, and we require an information session prior to that before we can even draft an ordinance. So this is a 2-month process that is required to do.
What I'm saying is that it was proposed last year. There wasn't a request to make it available last year. There was a request to just make it available. So you didn't take any action, and now we're being penalized for that.
Well, it's pretty obvious that we have members of the board who did not get enough information from RBC to make a decision. Let me put it to you this way. This is the way I feel about it. I've been doing this for a while, and RBC and its predecessor has come before us a lot of times with a lot of different asks. And yes, this particular thing that you're looking for sounds de minimis. It's 23 days of lights. But this is not the first time you've asked for things. You've asked for lights before. You've asked for extensions to the season. We went through a major hassle with you guys over parking. I think you guys have to realize that for all the good you do, you are a institution in the middle of a residential area, and it's incumbent upon you, I think, to be a good neighbor. And as several people said here tonight, the lights are a problem, especially this time of year when you don't have leaves on the trees and all of that. So, as far as I'm concerned, I have a sense of the body here that we're not ready to proceed on that, at least this year. And I would suggest that for next year, you prepare something in January.
No, that's the point. It doesn't matter. We're ready to. Last year's submission was for at that point in time. This year's submission is. I'm not saying it has to be for this April 1st. I don't understand.
Oh, you're not saying it has to be for this year's?
Right, and that was the same as last year.
All right, then then we can carry this forward. That's something I did not understand. So I guess what I'm then saying is the change cannot be made this year, and we're going to need to get from you, and I think maybe we should get together, put together a list of questions that we need, so that at some time between now and next April, we have the information and we have the time to implement any changes that need to be made.
Certainly, and that's what I thought last year's motion was all about.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. So we're not going to take any action this year, and I would suggest that your board get together with staff and try to put together a presentation so that we have the information we need for whoever is sitting here next year at this time.
Well, why doesn't the committee submit the questions that they have?
Well, I'm certainly, if Ms. Bianchi and Mr. Baldessari are willing to do that, fine.
No, last year when we left the meeting, my question was, do I need to do anything more to this committee for a decision? And you said no. So now that you're coming back to me and saying I had to do more, I don't understand that. There's a miscommunication that took place.
Obviously there's miscommunication.
But it wasn't on our part.
All right, well, we're not taking action now. And we're not going to change the ordinance this year.
Well, just so you know, we spend $80,000 to $100,000 a year to maintain that facility. It's owned by the town.
Sir, I don't want to get into a colloquy. I think the best thing for you to do is to formally make a report, put up a report, a proposal to staff, which this committee can then take action on in a formal way. We don't have the time to do that now.
Okay, we made the proposal. You have questions. I don't know what those questions are.
All right, well, it can't be handled. It's not going to be handled this year. The change isn't going to happen this year. So let's get together in some productive way, either through Parks and Recreation or whatever, so that we don't go through this again next year.
Well, if
That's all I can
it's
say.
not going to happen.
It's not going to happen this year.
It's not going to happen tonight. But if during the course of the year
that's what I mean.
Put
For
something
next
together.
April.
I thought that was last year. That's the end of this.
Evidently not.
Nothing happened.
Copy of the letter dated March 2nd, 2017.
All right, thank you, Jay. All right, well, this matter's taken care of as
I
far as
believe
I'm
the
concerned.
characterization that you guys make of the baseball club is so wrong that
I'm not making any characterization of it. other than to say that we don't get from
No,
you.
you're saying that we're not good partners, that we're not good
I'm saying
neighbors.
that you need to maintain your relationship with the neighborhood. That's what I'm saying.
They hate us. It's about hate right now.
All right,
Unbelievable.
moving on. We have a notification, item B.
Yes, next is a notification from Community Hope of their application to Somerset County for a community development block grant for Hope for Veterans Transitional Housing Program. This is an employment training program. Mike Armstrong is in the audience tonight if you have any questions. However, this is simply an acknowledgement of their block grant to Somerset County.
All right, I will ask if any of the other members of the committee have any questions for Mr. Armstrong. I will tell Mr. Armstrong that I have already signed the documents acknowledging the receipt of this, and I wish you the best of luck. Any other members wish to comment?
As do I. The best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just say one
Please.
very quick? I'd just like to thank.
All right, in front of the microphone, please, Michael.
I'd just like to thank the mayor and the township committee for their support of our veterans programs for the last 14 years. And also, I'd just like to let you know, we finally got our funding together and the VA approvals, and so we'll be having our groundbreaking for the next 50 units sometime in April. So we'll keep you
Well,
apprised.
congratulations.
You'll get an invitation.
Congratulations.
So thank you for all your
That's
support.
wonderful.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. All righty. And finally, we have a same sort of notification from our house.
Correct. This is on their application for a community development block grant to Somerset County. And this is for handicap accessibility and home improvements to the group home in Merner's Township on Lafayette Lane. And Diane Driscoll is here if you have any questions.
Diane, I believe I already signed the documents. You are officially, we have officially acknowledged that we have received copies of it. So again, best of luck for your application, and you do wonderful work. Anybody else have comments about our house?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, I'd like to say I was able to attend the ribbon cutting, so it's a beautiful home, and welcome to the neighborhood. Thank you.
All right. Best of luck to you. All right. That moves on to Township Committee and staff comments, and I'm going to start with Bruce.
All right, Deputy Mayor, I'd be happy to address some of the Far Hills questions.
All right, I was going to talk a little bit about that, but let me just say what I have to say. I just want to reassure the folks in that neighborhood that while I can't get into specifics because there's back and forth in front of the judge, and we're bound by Rule 408 that we can't talk about that. There's been an ongoing colloquy between Berners Township and Far Hills. This is probably going to go on for a while. There are money involved and lawyers involved, and you know what's going to happen there. I would say that to answer Mr. Demerjian's specific question about the correspondence we sent, I would characterize as an informal letter of information to you for that, to them about our involvement, and it was not a formal legal document. I could say no more. Okay. All right. As far as notice of what's going on there, I understand that you have a group and you've hired Ms. Manduke to be your attorney, and I believe Ms. Manduke has requested that she be included for service on all legal correspondence, so if the judge allows that, then she and her clients will be in the loop in terms of legal notifications going forward. Okay? That's all I know about that. As far as our sending representatives to those meetings, that's to be determined. We don't know what the meeting's going to be about, whatever. I'm going to guess we'll be represented some way. Actions have been taken. Bruce, you want to elaborate on that?
There was a question about a planner, and we do have the same professional planner as Far Hills. On the agenda tonight, item 5 is for Berners Township to hire a planner to represent us specifically in this matter, and John Drill will be working with him.
Mr. Drill is our planning board attorney, just so those who don't know. Go ahead.
And we have a wonderful substitute attorney on the dais, Joe Sardillo, who is conflicted as well because he's the attorney in Far Hills. So it's a very interesting time. I did speak to John Drill today, and he did tell me that there were some things that we can share with the public. In his letter, basically, we did tell Far Hills that we objected to that site, that it's not suitable. In response, Far Hills had a public meeting last night where they indicated that there is another possible site that has been ID'd with a willing developer, and that, yes, there is a plan for April to have public presentations, not only from K&K, but from this other developer. They have asked Judge Miller, the Superior Court judge in Somerville, to kind of put the moving ahead with the K&K thing on hold at this time, and they have said the borough will either rescind the resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the K&K agreement and MOU, or otherwise put it on hold pending consideration of the other proposals. So, Mr. Drill's letter did have some positive impact in Far Hills, and some other people have crawled out of the woodwork in Far Hills with some what appear to be logical alternatives to that. So,
obviously, K&K will object, but as I said, there's money involved, there's lawyers involved, so I guess as good as mine as to which direction this is going to go at this point. But this township has not just been sitting on its hands. We've, to the point that we can intervene, we will intervene.
Thank you.
This is obviously mandated by the state. Judge Miller is not only a Superior Court judge in Somerville, he's also the Mount Laurel judge for this vicinage of these three counties, and therefore he is sort of the final arbiter as how we go forward and who we can consider and so on and so on. And he is in the loop. I would just say one thing about Mr. Banish, and that is, I don't think Mr. Banish is in Far Hills to push any particular plan. He certainly does not do that here. He informs us as to what our requirements might be. He might give us some guidelines as to how to move forward, but he does not say develop here or develop there or do this or do that. His advice is always objective and professional. We had another question about the pedestrian bridges status. Mr. Timko is not here this evening, but we are, do you recall from our last subcommittee meeting, we are in process to get those bridges replaced. There are DEP permits to get, they cross over streams. We have bids out and engineering, bid documents have been put out, so we're moving forward on that with our usual glacial rapidity that was required for those kinds of things. But again, we're moving on that. That has not been forgotten. What was I going to say? Bruce, would you comment very briefly on whether or not we got a major tax increase because of engineering or not?
The presentation that CFO Terry Johnson did in combination with Pat Monaco's infrastructure study has been something discussed for multiple years. We have not been budgeting the amounts necessary to truly keep our infrastructure in A1 condition, and infrastructure, our roads, sidewalks, stormwater, our public spaces, our parks, and we've made no secret of the fact that it was our desire, staff's desire, to, when the open space tax sunsetted, that it was an opportunity to put the money into our capital program that is needed, and that's the proposal on the table, and that's what will be introduced in our budget, which the budget introduction is scheduled for the next meeting, I believe. The overall municipal tax impact on the homeowners of Burns, that the overall tax levy, all things combined, is a decrease. And I think it's a good plan, and it's, our open space program was immensely successful. I tried to document that in the fall with a presentation. 20% of the township is now preserved as open space between township and county land. I think our open space is really, second to none of towns around us, and that's another thing that that investment in open space requires an investment in capital as well. So all those things are combined, and
but the key word there is the tax levy actually went down.
the total tax levy from 2017 to 2018 that is coming, the municipal share has gone down. And yes, there is no longer an open space tax levy. We were conscious of that, and we have a long history of tax stability that goes back to 2005, of tax increases that, when compared to the other towns in the state, are a fraction of what the state as a whole has experienced. So,
all right, thank you. Any other comments on any other matters?
I'm all commented out.
Okay, thank you. Denise, anything from you this evening?
No, thank you.
Joe Sordello, anything from you?
Nothing to add. The only thing I would just clarify is that with the meeting, because I was at the Far Hills meeting on Monday, was that there is no scheduled meeting in April at this point for developers to come in. It's something that, depending on how the judge sets it up, will be future meetings, and the township, as being an objector or interested party, would be informed.
Thank you. Ms. Bianchi.
Okay, just a few things. I want to thank everybody for their comments on the various issues. And I want to thank Mr. Warman for filling out the Tap the Talent form and for getting involved. Thank you for that. With regard to, let's see. Oh, tonight, Ms. Gaziano and I attended the Freeholder meeting where we were presented with a proclamation celebrating Women in Public Office Day as March 19th. And we also were there for National Women's History Month of March. So that was a good night for us. And one of our residents, MJ Postal, received an award from the Youth Services Commission for all her volunteerism with our youth. So congratulations to her. I attended the PAC 451 Pinewood Derby on Saturday, so I want to say congratulations to all the kids and the families. And we had one of our young residents here with his mother, but they left, so I was hoping they might come up and introduce themselves. With regard to your comment, Todd, about the infrastructure, I understand your point about we would love to just give the money back to the residents, but we also have maintenance needs that we've been putting off, and now we have an opportunity to address them. We get a lot of complaints about our roads and our infrastructure decaying, and we're always trying to balance that. What's the percentage of the municipal budget that we keep, Bruce? Is it 12%?
It's about 13%.
Yes, I think we do a pretty good job with what we have to work with, but I think that we need to put more money into our infrastructure. Let's see, what else? We have the open space presentation Bruce is talking about. We talked about putting that on our website, a link, so if there's room on our homepage, that would be great if we could get that up there so everybody could see all the good things we did with the open space tax.
It's already up there, isn't it?
I don't see it, but maybe it is.
I think it is.
Okay, good. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that with regard to Ridge Baseball Club, I think we just need, it's not a dead issue. We need to talk about it, and we just need to balance the interests of the neighbors and the baseball club. And I think that a sit-down would be good between the neighbors and the baseball club with a representative from the Township Committee and see if we can work something out. I think that needs to be done. You're smiling, maybe you've tried that, but we can always give it another crack before we make a decision, because it's not a matter of... we can always try
that horse may be dead, but we're not done beating it, all
All right.
Never done. But I just think that before we make a decision, we've got to have a conversation, because we do have a lot of questions. But it's not a dead issue, and it's not a matter of choosing sides, it's a matter of trying to come up with a solution. And that's it, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gaziano?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. Easy. Mr. Baldessari?
All right, thank you. I did not get to attend the Pine Derby on Saturday because I was at a budgeting seminar for municipal officials, and I will never get that time back. But I'll tell you right now, I've got a newfound respect for Terry Johnson, the CFO, and the administrators of this town, because what it takes in order to do that is it's quite an impressive feat. I'd like to address Mr. Kopp's comments regarding school safety. I absolutely echo everything that you just said. Having my wife as a school resource officer, William Mann, and she's the point person. She's in there if anything goes wrong. So that's obviously a very big concern on my part. Just know that there's always upcoming meetings at the county, township, and board of education, though, that we're doing. The police department always works with the schools to come up with solutions and ideas to create the safest possible environment. We're always doing that. They're always doing that, and they will continue to do that. There are, and have been for a long time, drills and training that's conducted on a regular basis, state-required drills that involve the students. So, they're on top of it. We obviously, given the day and age, need to do better, and we will. And I'm sure you have everybody's commitment up here that we'll do whatever we can in order to make things as good as possible and as safe as possible. With regard to Mr. Warman, Semper Fi, I absolutely agree with everything that you said, too, regarding legalizing marijuana, sir. It's a gateway drug. It is what it is, and my wife will be the first one to sit down and give you 14 classes on that, because that's another thing that she does that I'm well aware of. Kudos to Mr. Walton for coming in and being, the JCP&L representative that he is, and understand everybody's concerns on the Far Hills thing. I will let council speak to that. Bruce has already touched on that. And Todd, you make a number of great points, as always. So, food for thought going forward. There goes another meeting. And I think that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Jim. I kind of made my comments already. I would echo Carol's notice about Mary M.J. Postal. She's a longtime member of the Municipal Alliance, and has spent a lot of time with the RAD program at the high school, and she's always over there manning tables and things like that. So an award well deserved for her. She's a pillar of the Municipal Alliance. Just to repeat, the tax levy went down this year. I feel like I can say that enough, but thanks to Bruce and staff for that. And you'll learn everything you might ever want to know about it on the 13th when we introduce it. All right, that ends Township Committee and staff comments. Moving on to unfinished business. Ordinance 2377.
This is an ordinance of the Township of Berners, County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, amending the revised general ordinances of the Township of Berners, Chapter 12, Building and Housing, regarding pre-occupancy records, inspections, zoning clearance records, and this is a public hearing.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing on Ordinance 2377. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on 2377 and bring it back to the dais for a motion.
Deputy Mayor, I'll move that ordinance 2377 be adopted and advertised as required by law.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Baldessari?
Yes.
Ms. Bianchi?
Yes.
Ms. Gaziano?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Carries.
Guys? Jay, could you move them down the hall a bit? Thank you. We must have order. Moving on to Ordinance 2378. Denise?
This is an ordinance of the Township of Berners to set calendar year 2018 appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank per NJSA 48:4-45.14. This is a public hearing.
All right, Jake, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to open that door.
Oh,
Okay? When we're in public, when we're in open session, that door has to be open.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, sir. That's all right, sir. It's a state requirement. All righty, can I get, let me open the public hearing on ordinance 2378. Hearing nothing, I will close the public hearing. And may I get a motion on 2378?
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, I move that ordinance number 2378 be adopted and advertised as required by law.
Thank you, Jim. May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Gaziano. Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Baldessari?
Yes.
Ms. Bianchi?
Yes.
Ms. Gaziano?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Carries.
All right, moving on to item 8C. Denise?
This is ordinance 2380, an ordinance accepting Walden Place. This is also a public hearing.
All right, I'm going to open the public hearing on ordinance 2380. Seeing none, close the public hearing and move it back. Is there any discussion? Excuse me, is there a motion on 2380?
Deputy Mayor, I'll move that ordinance 2380 be adopted and advertised as required by law.
Thank you. Carol, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Carolyn. All righty, is there any discussion? I did ask Mr. Timko last time if the road had been upgraded to township standards. He said that it was.
And the maintenance bond is in place.
There you go. So, roll call, please, Denise.
Mr. Baldessari?
Yes.
Ms. Bianchi?
Yes.
Ms. Gaziano?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Carries.
All righty, that takes us to new business. The first item is the consent agenda. The items listed within the consent agenda portion of the meeting have been referred to the Township Committee for reading and study, linked to the posted agenda on the website, are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion of the Township Committee with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is required, the item may be removed from the agenda by Township Committee action and placed on the regular agenda under new business. Does anyone want to pull an item off of the consent agenda?
Deputy Mayor, I need to consult with our attorney for a second.
Okay. Anybody else?
All right, I'm going to pull number 6.
All right, anybody else? Could I get a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all right, that was Mr. Baldessari and Ms. Gaziano. There being no discussion, may I get a roll call?
Mr. Baldessari?
Yes.
Ms. Bianchi?
Yes.
Ms. Gaziano?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
And that carries.
Carol, regarding resolution 2018-0151.
Right, I'm going to recuse on that item.
Oh.
Or abstain on that particular item at this time.
Okay. Then can I get a motion from someone else on 0151?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Denise, could I get roll call of the remainder?
Mr. Baldessari?
Yes.
Ms. Gaziano?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, that brings us to item B, which is ordinance 2381.
This is accepting a stream buffer conservation easement on property located at 152 Annan Road, that's block 4701, lot 19, from Michael and Heather Wenzel to the Township of Bernards, and this is an introduction.
All right, may I get a motion on this introduction?
Deputy Mayor, I move that ordinance number 2381 be introduced on first reading, advertised as required by law, and scheduled for a public hearing on March 13th, 2018.
All right, may I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Baldessari?
Yes.
Ms. Bianchi?
Yes.
Ms. Gaziano?
Yes.
Mayor Malay?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And last but not least, ordinance 2382.
This is an ordinance of the Township of Bernards appropriating $1,424,500 for various capital improvements. This is an introduction.
All right, may I get a motion on this introduction?
Deputy Mayor, I move that ordinance 2382 be introduced on first reading, advertised as required by law, and scheduled for a public hearing on March 13th,
2018.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion on this ordinance? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Baldessari.
Yes.
Ms. Bianchi.
Yes.
Ms. Gaziano.
Yes.
Mr. Malay.
Yes.
And that motion carries.
With no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.